Hello there, this is Jen with Jenny Demonic. How's it going? So today I want to finally talk about something that a lot of clients ask me about, and it is a very controversial topic. We're going to talk about demonic possessions and how it relates to demonic magic, and also how it relates to mental illness and how it relates to everyday life. So this is a topic that I've been thinking about to bring to you in the most, let's say, scientific and sounded and realistic way. I first and foremost want to say that there are a lot of people that study this for a lifetime. There are theologists, there are demonologists that dedicate their whole life into studying this. And I am not a theologist, I'm not a demonologist. There's a difference between a caster and a demonologist. And I am not a psychiatrist, okay? I am just bringing this information based on everything that I have collected and based on our experience, basically. And I like to discuss this in a way that involves also movies and how these things are portrayed in Hollywood movies, and what we think it's a fair and accurate representation of, and what we think is a not so realistic representation of what is going really on in the possession in the demonology world. So there is an absolute disclaimer that I have to put. This is just conversational. I am just sharing my thoughts with you. I don't have to be an authority to share my thoughts with you. I believe in science above all, and you must know that a lot of things that we didn't know years ago about neuroscience, about cognitive science, and about mental illness, we know now. And so there's a lot more in science that we know, and we can definitely confirm that because science has advanced so much, a lot of those manifestations are actually a display of a mental illness rather than a demonic possession. So science is very important. Science is the pillar. There are scientific evidence that there is scientific evidence that a lot of things that were believed to be demonic possession, it's actually schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. There's just a different concept of how we see people that struggle with mental illness, of course, and righteously so, because these people have the fair right to a treatment, have the fair right to be loved in society, and they have a fair right to be recognized for what they have and not be labeled into something that will stigmatize them. So I'm all too glad that science has made that progress that allowed people to recognize the signs and symptoms of a mental illness versus something else. Now, there is, however, the church is very, and by church I say the Catholic Church, they are the main authority on this, and they basically have very, very strict criteria as to who qualifies, let's just say who qualifies and who doesn't qualify. So having said all that, when does a demonic possession happen? And whoops, sorry about that. Let me put that on vibrate. This happens all too often. When does a demonic possession happen? When it's not a demonic possession. What should we know and how does it relate to us? Because we've had clients that asked, it's like, wow, is this safe? Or is it something that's going to enter in you? And I've had all sorts of questions. We're going to answer all of that. Before we do that, there are 2 new products. They're not demonic products. They are actually offered by Diana. One is a hypnotize him or her, hypnotize your target to do something, and it's cash for 3 weeks. It's a lovely product. And the other one, lo and behold, this is for you. Joy, rejoice, rejoice. There is a spell that is for men to attract ladies. So go for it. It's on our site. And then also don't forget that I'm going to put my Reiki healing here for all of those who like to experience a lighter energy around their body. Just make sure you order that one on Bonanza, please, because a lot of people order that on our site on PayPal. And there's no way that I'm gonna know who is which. So please make sure that you separate the two, and we'll still process. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do in this, I want to talk about the free will. Why is that important? Because it is important even in our casting. So the free will is the willingness of a person to accept or not accept, right? To accept or reject the energy. That happens in our casting too. Free will, folks, is something that no one can get around. The human mind was born with free will, and consent is important in everything. Everything. Now, I'm going to show you something from a very old movie that some of you will recognize. It's The Devil's Advocate. I hope YouTube doesn't give me problems. This is for educational purposes only. I'm not making money out of this. I feel like I have to give a lot of disclaimers today because this is a very controversial topic. But the idea of free will, I think this is the best way that I can explain free will to you. And that happens also in our casting, not in the dramatic way that it happens here. But I wanted to show you this. Let me see if I can show you what free will really means. Take a look at this. Are you ready? All right.
Free will, right?
So in this clip, the devil, represented by Al Pacino, is tempting Keanu Reeves to do something for him. The devil is enticing the surrounding field, that's how we read it, of Keanu Reeves to do something for him or to do something with him, right? So he's waiting for Keanu Reeves to give him an answer.
Free will, right?
Free will, right? And the devil's waiting. Rejecting. Let me stop the share. Rejecting that proposal. So now you have to understand that when you're working on anyone, and even yourself, no one can take away your free will. No one. So what you're doing, what in that clip, I think is showed beautifully, because we see this all the time. When we get a report and we tell you this attached and this is not attaching, it wouldn't be as dramatic as that, but this is a clear representation. Free will is something that is born with you. And so that sense of being at the edge between temptation and the right thing to do, that sense of being at the edge of a battle between good and evil, so to speak. It's a very real. It is true. It's something that we all experience. So it is when the devil in that movie explains to him all the reasons why Keanu Reeves should go for his plan. And you see, if you've seen that movie, I think it's a lovely movie. I think also Keanu Reeves is very hot, although he cannot act very well. I mean, we have Al Pacino there, but Al Pacino is the devil in that movie, and he's showing this theory of what things should be and why Keanu Reeves should go for him. And there's the man that gets tempted. And so there is the energy around him that will attempt to drive Keanu Reeves towards that plan, right? I think it's beautifully, amazingly displayed in the movie. I would love to know the writers, because I think they did an amazing job. And I think they also consulted with the monologists and theologists for this, because there is an actual truth behind it, is that the center of the person, the human being, holds free will from the beginning to the end. And so you're going to interfere with that free will. What does that mean? It means that you're making a proposition, like the devil did there. It's up to the person to accept that proposition or not. It's free will, folks. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind is this is a perfect example of what it means to sort of entrail a person in the surrounding field. But that's not demonic possession. That's as far as it goes. So demonic possession is a different thing. Demonic possession happens when a demon or Satan himself, and there's again a lot of literature there. You know, some people don't think that Satan actually does that. It's more demons, lesser demons. That one of them will basically enter the body. So we're not talking about the surrounding field like I showed you in the clip right now. In the clip right now is very much the proposition that happens during casting, right? In terms of demonic possession is a different thing. Demonic possession happens when some entity enters your body, right? But that doesn't, it's very rare, and that doesn't always happen, and it doesn't always happen, and it doesn't happen the way it is portrayed in the movie. Let me show you what I mean. Let me share you another clip here from a very, very famous movie, right? So we have this little girl in The Exorcist that gets possessed, right? Everybody remembers that.
By this sign of the Holy Cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with the Father and the Holy Spirit.
Okay, so a lot of people have analyzed those clips and have come to the conclusion that that is pretty much a Hollywood representation of what a demonic possession looks like. So while it is a beautiful movie, it was made in 1972, and the special effects in that movie, they are amazing, because if you think back, they didn't have the technology that we have today to make a movie like that. So yay for them, they did an amazing job. But it's not quite how it happens. And the community of demonologists and theologists kind of agree to the fact that that was a little bit out there. Great movie though, great scary movie. first of all, ever since then, that was done in 1972, a lot of things have happened, right? We know a lot more about mental illness. We know a lot more about how to diagnose mental illness, how to treat mental illness. We have psychotropic drugs. We have effective psychotherapy. We have amazing psychiatrists and amazing psychologists. So we know a lot more of what a person suffers from than we ever did before, especially than we ever did back in the 1970s, 1960s, 1950s. Folks in the 1950s, they used to lobotomize people because they thought that would solve their problems. I mean, we're definitely far, far away from that. You know, now this is really a good thing that we have science, because science actually allows us to discriminate between what is really a demonic possession and what it's not. For 99.999 repeating percent, it's not. When you're saying that somebody has a bad attitude and it's a monster, so that person is possessed, he is not really possessed, folks. That's something that we say, but that's not true. And careful with the labels, because we want to make sure that people that suffer from mental disorders are accepted, loved, and they find their way to get treated and get accepted in society. Because mental illness, unfortunately, most of the time is a stigma, and it's a horrible stigma to have. And it has nothing to do with demonic possession. Now, we know that for sure because we have cognitive science that study how our brain works and how we perceive the information from the outside in. So we know that has nothing to do with demonic possession. So what are the things that the Catholic Church think are really related to demonic possession? There are such strict criteria that, first of all, if someone goes to the church and tells them, my daughter is possessed, for example, the church will say, well, you're going to need a psychiatrist, you're going to see a psychiatrist, you're going to see a psychologist, you're going to see a doctor, and when all else fails, come back. So with the technology that we have today, with the advancement of medicine that we have today, chances are that mother will never go back to the bishop of the Catholic Church, because the explanation most likely lies into one of the disorders or one of the pathologies that have been discovered. So problem ends there. However, in those very, very, very rare cases, then we have the Catholic Church review the case, and it's a long process, like everything that the Catholic Church does, but it's a very sound process. They don't say, oh my God, your daughter is behaving so badly, here is you're possessed, so let me call an exorcist. It doesn't work that way. Things are actually taken very seriously by all the parties involved, and there's a lot of animosity because it's really a battle between science versus religion, if you want. There's really a battle between the supernatural powers and those who believe in it and the actual science. There are psychiatrists and psychologists who are very much against this, and they battle this every day almost. So this is a very, very controversial topic, and the church is very serious at recognizing who might or might not be. And so the thing that I would say that there are three main characteristics, and when you hear those, you'll go like, yeah, my daughter is definitely not possessed. My boyfriend is definitely not possessed. That's not because it's really there are some very specific signs. So, for example, let's say that you live in America, and this person that you believe to be possessed doesn't speak prior to displaying odd behaviors, that person did not speak any languages at all other than English. That person did not speak any foreign languages. Okay. And all of a sudden they start speaking in unknown languages, unknown to you. But most of all, it is found that these people that have been possessed by demonic entities or by the devil itself, they are really able to speak Latin or ancient Hebrew, or some people say they speak in tongues. There's a lot of controversial thoughts about speaking tongues. It's not exactly like speaking unknown languages, sorry. But they speak in a language that you don't know, and that you know for sure that that person did not speak until yesterday. Okay, so the speaking of unknown languages is the number one trait of a demonic possession. Something that person would never be able to know otherwise. So that one alone, that one is the number one trait. And then there has to be other traits along with it, but that alone will prompt the church to say, okay, so we're going to send somebody. But it's that one alone almost. There are other traits, which is this person is able to make animal sounds, so grunting like a dog, or really having animal sounds, kind of like you see in The Exorcist. But that alone would not prompt for a revision of the case according to the church. If it's that criteria, along with the speaking in tongues or speaking unknown languages. I would say more speaking unknown languages, because speaking in tongues, again, is controversial. Even in Christianity, there's a lot of controversies there. If you don't know what speaking in tongues is, just Google that. Some people think it's really a bunch of gibberish. I would say the church values more and accepts more cases where people are reporting to speak unknown languages, particularly Latin. So that would be the thing. So then another criteria would be having paranormal capabilities. So something that this person that is believed to be possessed wasn't able to know the day before, or knowing things about a person this person never met before. So extremely high, extremely intense psychic capabilities, but that alone would not cause for a revision of the case by the Catholic Church. Again, the only criteria that alone will cause the revision of the case by the Catholic Church will be the speaking of unknown languages. And that is the only criteria that would prompt for the church to say, so we're going to send somebody. But you can have, for example, supernatural strength, like people that have been able to move themselves or chairs in a way that looks like a tornado, that could be something that might raise eyebrows. But if there isn't a speaking of unknown languages criteria, that alone will not prompt for a revision of the case. So there's also a few theologians and also a few demonologists who feel that it's not the entering of a demonic entity into one's body does not happen without the consent, however minimal, of the person. So again, it goes back to free will. The human being, in spite of what you might think, the human being is a being of extreme value, is a being that has extreme potential, and is a being that is born with its own free will. So you might think, if you want to think this in terms of Catholic, or Hebrew, I don't I don't support and I don't promote any particular religion or any particular belief. But if you want to think about it, it would be this human with free will. The free will remains of the human. It is a gift that you have that no one can take away from you unless you let someone take that away from you. And by someone, I mean either whatever universal God you believe in, or whatever universal negative energy you believe in. We can call that God and Satan, right? So the free will is the battle between the two. So if you think about like like in those cartoons that you have Donald Duck and has a little devil speaking here and an angel speaking here, and then you decide which way to go. I had to tell you, it's a very simplified version of, but it kind of is true, because the human being at the very core is able to make its own decisions. And so the battle between the energy, the energy of light and the negative energy is always there. And there's always a way to say, no, I don't want it. On one way or another, you can refuse the light, you can diffuse the positive energy. It is really up to you. So this is why it is when there is a supernatural interaction, it happens. A lot of people think it happens because the person has agreed to it. That person has agreed to let that energy in, so to speak. Now, another question that I had from clients is, what is Satan about? It's just like there's this idea of Satan being portrayed as this animal-like. Everyone knows there's a lot of statues out there. There's a lot of but what really in Hebrew tradition, I believe, it's really a fallen angel. It's someone that disagreed with, the light or the energy that was given by God, and God said, okay, so I kick you out, basically. It's a fallen angel. Now, there is another way to look at this. Let me share that with you. And this is, if any of you have had philosophy in school, you know that you kind of see this a lot, and this is, again, I think this is why The Devil's Advocate is a great movie, because they do show this part.
I'm here on the ground with my nose in it since the whole thing began.
This is the devil speaking.
I've nurtured every sensation man has been inspired to have. I cared about what he wanted, and I never judged him. Why? Because I never rejected him, in spite of all his imperfections. I'm a fan of man. I'm a humanist. Maybe the last humanist. Who in their right mind, Kevin, could possibly deny the 20th century was entirely mine? Oh!
So I'm going to stop right here, because I think the battle between these two forces, I do believe that has something to do with what one energy thinks versus what the other energy thinks. And, we could stay here hours discussing how the positive light versus the negative light, or versus the negative energy, interact with each other. But it's, at the end of the day, it is up to you. And at the end of the day, I like you to know that the human being is this amazing individual with an amazing brain that we now get to know, that we now know more and more every day. And so we can exclude some other things. But at the core of the soul of the human being, there's that thing called free will that is essential for recognizing whatever it is that you go for. And so I think that I wanted to make this video for quite a while sometimes, for some time. I would say, I think it gives clients a perspective of what it is, what it is, what it is, what does it mean when they hear these terms, Satan, demonic possession, demonic energy, universal energy, light, love, attraction. I'm just discussing this with you, and we've seen some examples in Hollywood movies. Some of them, I think, they were interesting examples. They came from the mind of another human being that had thoughts about how should the positive versus the negative energy be perceived. There are a lot of people, again, that study this in depth, and there's a lot of efforts put through in the scientific community to claim, okay, no, this is what's ours now. We know now that progress has been made, and we know now not to be this way. So I'm going to leave you with all this information, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, I remind you, we have 2 new products for full moon. I think a lot of you will enjoy those. And my Reiki healing is also going to be down here. I am enthusiastic to see what you make of this video, and please let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here to answer. The comments will be disabled because we have interesting people commenting that have nothing to do with the video itself, but rather promoting their own business or promoting sexual activity, which is something that we cannot do. So we're going to disable the comments, but you can always reach out to us. Okay, and that really terminates the survey of demonic possessions in Hollywood movie. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. This is Jen with Jen in the Morning. Bye.